Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're going to do a little odds and ends video because, again, I have stuff piling up over here. Over the last month in February, I went to two different events, swap meet type events, and picked up a bunch of new stuff, as well as some viewer mail and what have you in here that we need to get worked through. Just got back from the Florida Flywheeler show down in Florida, something that has become an annual event for me. Really enjoyed going down there. We had a little meet and greet on Friday this past week and got a chance to meet up with several of you viewers out there. That's always a lot of fun, and just ran into some different people that watched the channel throughout the show while I was down there. And that's a great event. If you ever get a chance to go to the Florida Flywheelers, I highly recommend it. They got an awesome swap meet. It's a big tractor show. They kind of got a little village set up out there. Lots and lots and lots of things to do. They've got a sawmill that runs off of a steam traction engine, a bunch of just really cool stuff, and always enjoy going to the Florida Flywheelers event every year. And here in a minute, we'll go through and show you the little couple of items. I didn't pick up a whole lot down there, but I did pick up a few little things that we'll share with you. Also had a chance to go to the Midwest Tool Collectors Association, their Peach Meet, which is another annual event that is usually held the first weekend in February. That's up in Madison, Georgia, a couple hours north of me. Me and a couple of friends went up to that, got some new toys there as well. We'll be sharing some of that stuff coming up as well. And before I kind of get out of the introduction here, I do want to make another announcement in case you missed it. I did do a little special video on this a couple of weeks ago about upcoming event that's going to be coming up here real soon, and that's going to be the ARNFest South event. Now, you probably have heard me talk about ARNFest in the past. That's the big event that I go to up every year in the fall up in Illinois. This year, for the very first time, we are planning on hosting a southern version of that. That's going to be held right here in my hometown, Tifton, Georgia, out at the Georgia Museum of Agriculture. So the Museum of Agriculture is going to be the venue. If you've ever wanted a chance to come visit the museum and see everything cool going on out there, this will be a great opportunity to do that. And at the same time, we're going to be hosting the ARNFest event there, which will be kind of a separate private event going on right there at the museum. It's all right there together where we're going to be doing things. And that's going to be on April 25th through 27th. This is 2025. And again, that is located in Tifton, Georgia. Got quite a few people already registered for that. We've got some YouTubers who are going to be coming in as well. Still getting hard commitments from some folks. I think Jim Bollinger, Do Right Fabrication's planning on coming. Dale Derry out in California told me he's planning on coming over to it. Jimmy DeResta said he's going to try to get here. I hope that he does make it. We'll see. I'm trying to think of who else in kind of the YouTube world. There's been a couple others, and I'll be doing some more updates on that and kind of letting you know who's going to be coming to that. But there'll be meet and greet opportunities there as well. We're going to be having some demonstrations and kind of classes throughout the 2 days on a Friday and Saturday. Some of those demonstrations will be on the museum. We're going to be doing a demonstration of steam-powered sawmill on Saturday. We're going to do a little walkthrough tour and kind of looking at the woodworking shop, with the line shaft-powered woodworking shop, which is something I've never really shown on my channel. So that's really interesting. Probably going to do a demonstration on making wooden barrels in the Cooper shed, where they do turpentining at, and probably talk about, we won't run the turpentine steel that day, but we'll talk about the turpentine operations that would have gone on back in the day here as well. And we've got some other people that are going to be doing some pretty cool things. Like I said, Jim Bollinger's coming. He's going to be doing a TIG welding, kind of a mini class. It's going to be more of a lecture and just kind of talking about it, not really hands-on. There's just too many people there, but he is going to do a little class there for us. And we got bunches of other stuff that's kind of coming up. If you're interested in that, you can go check out the arnfest.com website. That is where you can register. And we don't have anything on the agenda right now. We're working on that, but here in the next week or two, I hope to kind of start having a rough draft of the agenda and the stuff we're going to be offering out there, so you can kind of see some of the activities that's going to be going on. Should be a fun time. On Saturday morning, we have a big swap meet where people can bring, you guys, anybody that's registered can bring stuff to sell. So if you got stuff in your shop that you want to get rid of, You can take it out there, put it on the tailgate of your truck, put out a table, whatever you want to do. And, it's a really good opportunity for people to kind of swap stuff within the community here. I'm planning on bringing quite a bit of stuff out there. I've accumulated a bunch of stuff that's just duplicate, extra, stuff that I don't really need. I'm gonna probably have about a whole trailer load of stuff that I'm gonna be taking out to the swap meet, and hopefully try to price stuff where people can, afford to get it. I mean, I'll probably be giving some pretty good deals on stuff just because I need to get it out of my way. And a lot of other people do that as well. So if you want to do that, again, register for the event. On Saturday morning, we'll have the swap meet there at the museum. It's a great place to pick up some new stuff, kind of like you see me going to these swap meets and picking up stuff, as well as sell some stuff if you want to sell some things. So anyway, enough on that. Go register at arnfest.com. We do have a registration fee for it. This is a little bit of an expensive thing to host as far with the rental fees. We do a banquet which comes with a meal on Saturday evening with a silent auction and stuff that uses to raise money to support the Vintage Machinery website, as well as the Old Woodworking Machines Discussion Forum website. A lot of the IT costs and stuff there are kind of covered by ARNFest, so this is a fundraising event. And anyway, you can register at arnfest.com and come on out there, and information and stuff will be there for you to go check out. Let's get in here and work through our stuff that we picked up and share some of the new tools that's coming to the shop. I'm going to kind of start with the items that I picked up at the Peach Meet, the Midwest Tool Collectors Association. And the first one is a Babbitt scraper. And I've got lots of Babbitt scrapers. Didn't really need another Babbitt scraper, but this one I just thought was cool for one really neat reason, and that is on the bottom if you look right here. See that? Let me zoom in and show you that a little closer. So this was made by the Bluffland Tool Company out of, Mississippi, Missouri, I think is the name of the town, or Louisiana, Missouri. It was a state in the state. Yeah, Louisiana, Missouri is where this was made at by the Bluffland Tool Company. This was made well before World War II, and a lot of people see this and you automatically assume it's a Nazi, it's German, it's bad, it's evil. Well, before Hitler came to rise, a little history lesson here, this little symbol was a symbol of good luck and was used by a lot of companies. It was their logo. It was very widely used things. I think the Native Americans, the Indians, kind of used this as a symbol that they had as a kind of a good luck symbol. And the Nazis kind of took it and changed the meaning of it forever. And this predates that. So anyway, I thought that was just kind of cool. Urban myth out there. I see this all the time on the internet about welding tanks that have the swastika on it, and people say they were captured by Germany during World War II. It's a great story, but it's not true. Back before World War II, there was a tank inspector that used this as his symbol when he inspected tanks back in the in the 19-teens, 1920s, again, before Hitler came to rise. And a lot of those welding tanks are still in use out there. And most of them, they took a punch and kind of turned it into kind of a window pane figure, so it wasn't a swastika anymore. But no, it wasn't captured by the Germans like you read all over the place on the internet. No, it was an inspector's mark. And again, it actually predates the use of the swastika in World War II. Anyway, I thought it was just cool because of the little logo on the bottom, so I picked it up. So I picked up this little drill index. This one here takes numbered drill bits from 1 to number 60. And you just kind of put your drill bits in here. This was an advertising piece, obviously, for the Greenfield Tap and Die Company, which I've kind of got a sweet spot in my heart for them. I got some of their tap and die sets, and their tap handles, I really like them. Anyway, I saw this. It's in excellent condition for its age, and I just had to have it. Don't really need it, but it's going to look cool. Be more shop art than anything else. So anyway, that was a pretty cool little item I picked up there. This is a little toolmaker square that would have been used on a surface plate. This was actually more than likely not a commercially bought something. This was probably made by a tool and die maker. A lot of times when they were doing their apprenticeship, they would have little projects that they had to do, making their own tools. And this one here has got Carey stamped in it, K-E-A-R-Y, which was probably the person who made it. That was his last name. And this would have been a project, again, where they would have made it. This has been done out of tool steel. The holes that are drilled in it are mainly in there just to kind of lighten it up. They don't even go all the way through. They're not tapped, so you really can't bolt anything to them per se. It's just kind of to lighten it up. has some holes in the back and on the bottom. But this would have gone on a surface plate, and this would have been ground square. Just be using as a tool for measuring things and checking things out. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. Found that on someone's table, so I picked it up. Got a dial test indicator number 22 set made by the BC Ames company in the box. This was pretty cool. So you kind of got this little cast iron base, and you got this arm that would fit into the T-slot, and you could mount this on here for doing inspection work. You got the arm, and then there's the indicator here made by BC Ames. So the indicator's missing the crystal, but I'll send that up to Mark Rotowski, who's my guy that does my repair work. He'll go through this indicator and have it like brand spanking new. I really like these Ames indicators. I think they're kind of underrated. A lot of people don't see them and just kind of pass them up because they're not Starrett. They're not, everybody wants Starrett tools, which Starrett made great stuff. There's a good reason for that. But Ames, in my mind, this is probably the toughest built indicators out there. If you just pick this thing up, this thing is heavy. You got a steel back here this thing is made out of. These things are just bulletproof, and I really like them. This one here is a 0.5 thousandths increments on the dial, and came with this set here. Anyway, I thought that was pretty neat. I had a pretty reasonable price on it, so I picked it up. Also, while I was there, someone had out on his table a whole bunch of these steel rules, and they were dirt cheap, and I just bought a bunch of them. Again, these steel rules like this, I use them all the time, and they end up getting kind of left all over the shop. So whenever I go looking for one, I have to go looking for one. So I got a drawer that I kind of throw them all in, but then they kind of get scattered out. So I like to have a bunch of them laying around. And these are all various makers in here. A lot of them are pretty well used, but anyway, I just bought the whole lot from them because like I said, I use them all the time. Got a couple of books I picked up. These were actually a gift from a viewer who I met at the tool meet. This came from Lee Moody, and he gave me these 2 books. The first one here is called Railroad Engineering, and it's just got a lot of railroading information in here, more on track layout and stuff like that. There is some locomotive information in here as well, but just really an old book about railroading. The other one over here I think is just really cool. This one's called The Catechism of the Locomotive. It's written by Forney, and it was published in 1876. I'm not sure what edition this is. They had several different versions of this that were over the years. The book is not in the greatest of condition, but it is just a really neat book. And basically, what this book would have been used for is engineers on the railroad, when they were becoming an engineer, they had to learn all the information. And to become a certified engineer on the railroad, you basically had to take a test, and it was often, particularly in the early days, it was a oral test where you were asked questions and you were expected to be able to know the answers. This book basically has all the questions that you would need to know to become a steam engineer, and it has the answers. And while you were not necessarily expected to memorize it word for word, you were expected to pretty much know the content of this. And for example, here's question 147. I'm just reading a random one. How can the accuracy of a steam gauge be tested? Okay, so the steam gauge is going to tell you how much pressure is on the boiler, and you got to know the answer. And I'm not going to read it, but there's tons of questions in here. There's diagrams. It's just a really neat book, particularly on early steam locomotive stuff. A lot of stuff didn't change. A lot of stuff over the years they improved and had newer things or whatever, but really a neat book. Catechism of the Locomotive, 1876. This is anyway. And Forney was a very famous person in the railroading world. In fact, there was a locomotive design or style that was called the Forney style locomotive that he actually designed. So anyway, really cool book. Thank you very much. So another item I picked up at the Peach Meet was this really cool straight edge. And this one here, it actually has some interesting history to it. And I'm going to share a little bit about it with you. First off, it's made by the John T. Noye Company out of Buffalo, Noye. I looked this company up, and they actually, and this was actually made for using to set grist mill wheels, but it was used just like you would use a straight edge for machinery building. So it is a straight edge, but this one, like I said, was designed where they were actually using it to get a grist mill wheel, the round rock in a grist mill set properly. But it was a precision measuring tool that we would kind of span across the top of that wheel, and you would measure up underneath it to get it leveled out and everything. And of course, it can be used as a straight edge for scraping, which is what I'm interested in for it. And the reason that I was interested in is because this is real wide. I mean, this is probably about 3 inches wide across the bottom. Most of my straight edges are not that wide. This would be a really neat tool. You can see where it's got the flats. That's designed where you can flip it upside down and you can touch it up on a surface plate or whatever. It does have a little level in the top, although that level is not a precision level by any means. Not really sure why that would have been in there. But the other cool thing about it is the box that it was in. And if you look back here, it says the W&ARR. So the W&ARR stands for the Western and Atlantic Railroad. So this, again, while this thing was originally built for doing grist mill wheels, it could be used as a straight edge for anything. And I suspect that the railroad probably was using this in rebuilding locomotives, because you can use straight edges there as well for doing precision measurements and whatever. And I think that's probably why the railroad owned it. Obviously, the railroad probably wouldn't have been doing grist mill wheels. But again, this thing has multiple uses that you can use it for. It is a straight edge. No matter whether you're using it for a grist mill, a machine, or a locomotive. The Western and Atlantic Railroad is still in existence. It basically runs between Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia, and it's now owned, leased, operated, whatever, by CSX. But the interesting thing about the railroad is, if you know any history, this is the railroad that the great locomotive chase took place on during the Civil War. There's actually been some movies about that, a lot of interesting history. The General, which was the locomotive that took part in that, is in a museum up in Marietta, Georgia. You can go by and see that up there. It's really interesting to see. So anyway, a little bit of history all tied in here together. Again, I picked it up. I'll be using it as a straight edge for machinery building. It's just a neat tool with some neat history, and it's kind of unique from a straight edge standpoint. I don't have any straight edges, again, this wide on the bottom, and there's lots of times that little extra width will make a job go by a lot quicker and easier. It's heavy. What is it, 5 foot long? So about 4.5 feet long, 54 inches long, so not quite 5 foot long, and the width, again, on it, let's measure it. Let's see, it is 4 inches wide, so even wider than what I was thinking. Handy tool. Anyway, I thought I'd share that. All right, up next, I got a viewer mail item that came in. This came from, we're just going to call Wes, and Wes sent this along to me. And this is, of course, a big lathe dog. And he sent a note. He says, "I think you're the only one who has a lathe big enough and faceplates big enough, large enough for this dog." Well, I don't know if I'm the only one that has one, but I definitely do have a lathe big enough to run this on. And there have been times I've needed big dogs like this. So we'll put it in my stash of lathe dogs. If you don't know, this would be a driver dog. If you're turning between centers on the lathe, you would put this on the shaft. There's a set screw in the bottom. This would go up to your chuck or your faceplate, and it would basically just engage it. And this is what would actually turn the work. So your live or your dead center that's in here would rotate with the lathe, but there's not enough friction on there to actually turn the part while you're turning, a piece on the lathe, doing work on it. So when you tighten this up on there and put this in here, you got the leverage of that hitting up against your chuck or your faceplate, and that's actually what's turning your work. So very handy little tools to have, and this is in very nice condition. So thank you, Wes, for sending that along. So next comes a collection of some books sent in by Mike O'Connor, and we got Ginger over here wanting to read and study up, it looks like, back here behind. Oh, there she is, he is. Encyclopedia of Engineering was a series of books that basically has just got all kinds of information on engineering. This was a 6-volume set. He had this in his collection, was cleaning things out, didn't want to throw them into the scrap pile. So he put them in a box and sent them to me. And I don't think I've got a set of these in my library. So this will be a very nice little addition. So Mike, thanks so much for sending these along. I'll put them up in the library. Next up here, have some nice Morse taper drill bits that were sent in by Chuck. He just didn't want me to mention his full name there, but Chuck sent these in to me. And these are Morse taper number 5s. These will fit on both my big Carlton radial drill. They'll also fit on my horizontal boring mill. And we got 4 different sizes: inch and 7/8, inch and 11/16, inch and 21/32, and 2 inches. And these are all in great shape. Got nice grinds on the end. Look like they've been freshly ground and nice and sharp and ready to go. And anyway, these will be a nice asset to the shop and nice to have around. I got a place. I've kind of got some bigger drill bits like this, and I kind of got them all sorted by size. So I'm going to go put these in there. I don't know if these are duplicates or not. I don't have a whole lot in these bigger sizes, so probably can definitely be good. And a lot of the ones I have are Morse taper number 4s. These are number 5s, so a little bit larger. So nice to have the variety depending on which machine I'm using. So Chuck, thanks so much for sending those along. All right, next I got some books and literature that was sent in by Doug Miller up in Franklin, Tennessee. So first off over here, a stack of model engineering magazines, most of these from the 1950s, pretty cool stuff. Got some neat plans in there on making little models of all kinds. Basic technical drawing. This is a drafting book. You know, yeah, I want to say that when I was in high school, this was my textbook for drafting. That book looks so familiar because I took quite a bit of drafting in high school, and I'm almost certain that's the same textbook that we used back then. That's cool. I just realized that when I just looked at it right then. And these over here are some reprints of old books. Most of these are by Lindsay Publications, who I think has gone out of business in recent years, but they used to take the old books, kind of like what I collect, and they would reprint them. They were out of copyright, so a lot of the really old technology stuff, and they would publish them and sell them. And they had just a really cool, in fact, I can remember when I was in high school, I would get their little magazine that would come that had all their books in there, and I ordered a bunch of them because I was interested in old stuff even back then. You know, here's the Universal Milling Machine by Brown Sharp Company. You know, I've actually got some of this stuff. I've actually got original copies of, but these are reprints, and like I said, they were done by Lindsay Publications, and I really like their stuff. And like I said, I've still got a bunch of the books that were reprinted by Lindsay, and I read a lot of them when I was a kid growing up because they were just it was cool, and it was. You know, it's just pre-internet where you couldn't really find a lot of this stuff, so that was where you found it, was from Lindsay. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. Doug, thanks for sending that along. Up next comes a box full of stuff that was sent in by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous, and I'll respect that, but he did send along a manual here for a number 6-10 gear hobbing machine from the Barbara Coleman Company, along with a repair parts list. These will get scanned and put up on the website eventually. And he also sent along a bunch of high-speed steel tooling. This is pretty cool stuff. It's all been pre-ground and all been ground. You know, there's different patterns in here. So probably for doing some type of production work. But what's really cool is a lot of this, not all of it, like this right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got stamped on it or printed on it USAAF, which is United States Army Air Force. And the United States Army Air Force predated the United States Air Force. So back during World War II, the Air Force was part of the Army. And I think in the after the World War II, in the late 40s, it became a branch of service on its own. So USAAF, just on a bunch of this. One set of the cutters had USMC on it, which is the United States Marine Corps. That was Army Air Force. But my just speculating is that this was probably, you know, World War II vintage, high-speed steel, and it was probably for doing common jobs. They needed a particular grind to do particular jobs, and instead of having them do it in the shop, they just pre-ordered the stuff that was already ground with the grinds that they needed for whatever they were manufacturing along with it for those aircraft. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. I will put this stuff up. I got a bunch of high-speed tooling, high-speed steel tooling, and we'll put it in there. I'm really excited because some of this stuff is that kind of rectangular high-speed steel like I use on my metal planer. So I'll have to look and see if some of that will fit some of my tool holders over there, because this could very well become metal planer tooling for me down the road. Anyway, thank you very much to the anonymous person. You know who you are, and I do greatly appreciate it. Up next, a couple more books. These are actually some trade manuals that were sent in by Scott out in Arizona. I believe he told me these were his dad's, and basically when he was learning to become a machinist or something along those lines. Machine School Technology, Machine Shop Technology Part 1, and tool measuring and recording instruments. This is basically kind of this is copyrighted in 1934, by the way, but this is basically kind of a correspondence course that you would take, and you would read the stuff and basically learn the trade through, these correspondence courses that you would kind of do through the mail back in the days before we have internet and stuff like that. So anyway, this was part 3, the milling machine. I don't know if part 4 is in here or whether there were some other books that are missing, but still cool nonetheless. There's stuff on the shaper. So anyway, the turret lathe, all kinds of stuff. Scott, thank you very much for sending those along. We'll add them to the library. Next item comes from Norm up in Ohio, and he sent along this little machinist jack. This is, I'm assuming, probably a homemade item. I don't see a name or anything stamped on it, but pretty cool. It's got a really fine thread in here to adjust that up and down. This one has a point on it. You probably could change that out or put a different top on it if you needed to. But this is basically a machinist jack for doing setup work, layout work, where you needed to support something. You would put this up underneath it, kind of jack it in place, and clamp down on top of it, and you could put it on a milling machine or a metal planer or whatever you were working on to kind of set something up. Very nice tool. I've got a drawer over there with some machinist jacks in them. I'll put this in the collection, and these things get used. I use them actually fairly often for machine setups. So these bigger ones I don't have as many of the larger ones, so this will definitely be something of use. So thank you very much for sending that along. Next item comes from, didn't have a name on the box. I remember getting an email on it, and I haven't gone to look it up. But anyway, a viewer, nonetheless, sent along this set of bearing scrapers made by Mound. These are hollow ground bearing scrapers. They kind of look like this right here. This is kind of it almost looks like a file, but it's got the bend in it. Of course, there's no teeth in it, but this is your hollow ground. This is sharp on the inside, and you could use these for scraping Babbitt bearings or bronze bearings or whatever, kind of inside of a hole. There's also these here that are kind of the tool to get up in there. I find these really, really useful for scraping bearings. Here's one that's a little bit shorter. Anyway, nice little set of bearing scrapers made by Mound, and I will put this over there with my other bearing scrapers and have them when we need them. We scrape a lot of bearings around here, so definitely useful. Thank you, sir. So up next, I got stuff that we brought back from the Florida Flywheelers show, and the first one is this big Babbitt ladle. I found this that a vendor had. It's a little bit rusty, but it ought to clean up just fine. And yeah, this is a big one. And if you remember back when I was doing the big monster cane mill, we were pouring those big bearings, and I didn't have a ladle big enough to pour it. I had to actually pour it in 2 ladles. I had 2 ladles going simultaneously, and I kind of had to do it in one pour and then go real quickly pour the other one on top of it. Not ideal. Needed a bigger ladle. Found this one. This one right here should pretty much suit my needs. I doubt I'll ever need to pour more than that at one time. But glad to have this, because I got a couple different size ladles for different jobs, but didn't have a big one, at least not this big, and but I do now. So anyway, I found that out at the swap meet. Let me show you some of the other things we found out there. I was talking earlier about indicators made by Ames. Here's another BC Ames indicator. This is a thousandths reading. Again, these things are just super. I mean, this thing's twice as heavy as a typical like Starrett or Federal indicator. They're really nice tools. Anyway, I found that one. went ahead and picked it up. Don't know that I needed another indicator, but I just can't leave them when I find them at a good price. So there you go. I'm gonna probably send that one to Mark and let him. It's a little sticky. Let him rebuild it, but it'll be as good as new when it comes back. I found some new old stock grease cups. So these are little cups that you use these on steam engines and stuff. You would fill this up with grease, and basically when you tighten that down, you could just give it a little turn and it presses the grease down. And then when it gets empty, whenever you get to the bottom, you just stop and fill it back up. These were used on all kinds of little engines and stuff for bearings and what have you. And doing restoration work, sometimes you need these little things like this, and these were really nice. Like I said, they're brand spanking new old stock. I just went ahead and picked them up. I'll add them to my collection of oilers and lubricators over there, and again, have them when I need them for a project down the road. So these are a set of gear gauges for checking the pitch of gears, and I've got a set of these for involute gears, you know, with regular diametral pitch. This set here is for metric gears, and I didn't have a metric set. I don't do a lot of metric gears, I'll just be honest with you. In fact, I don't think I've ever made a metric gear. Not that I can't, I just haven't had a need for it. But there have been several times where I've had someone bring a gear in, we're trying to look at it, figure out what the pitch is, and it didn't match any of my involute pitches, and I assumed it was a metric pitch. But having this little set right here, you can go along and find out exactly what pitch those gears are. So nice little handy set. And like I said, I use my set that has the involute diametral pitch stuff, the American style stuff, very, very often, but this will be nice to have as well. These are kind of expensive if you can find them, but I went ahead and picked it up because I didn't have a metric set. Saw this little plumb hammer with I forget what, I think it was a Whitworth style. I can't remember what you call this type of peen on there. It's a straight peen, I guess, on the back of like a ball peen. Instead of a ball peen, this is a straight peen hammer. I've got a thing for plumb hammers. I like hammers that are made by Plumb. Plumb it's just one of those things I just like. I got a bunch of hammers over there made by Plumb. I didn't have one like this. At least I didn't think I did, and I got back and sure enough I didn't. But anyway, this one was the head's in pretty good shape. I don't think that's the original handle. Usually the handles on these Plumb hammers were red when they were new. Could be original, I don't know. Sometimes I'll see the ones without red handles, but the head's in pretty good shape, all things considered, and it had a decent price on it, so I went ahead and picked that up. I'll put it over there on my shelf with my other Plumb hammers because I just like Plumb tools. They're nice. Couple of wrenches and sockets that I picked up, just kind of filling out a couple of holes. The bigger wrenches here, these are made by Craftsman. I mean, they're nothing fancy, but I've told this before. Back when I was a teenager, I got a set of Craftsman tools for Christmas one year. And I've just always had Craftsman hand tools. And I've still got a lot of my original set over there. Plus, I've kind of filled in the ones that I've lost or whatever. I'm trying to get kind of a second set of tools in the back of the shop, so every time I need a wrench or a socket, I don't have to walk all the way up to the front of the shop. And I had a couple of little holes in my collection, and I made a list of things, and I was on the lookout while I was with Flywheelers. And anyway, I picked up a couple of these bigger wrenches, 1¼ inch, and 5/16, and these were a couple of sockets, 1/4 inch drive sockets for a couple of sockets that I was just didn't have one. So anyway, I picked those up to kind of fill in some holes in my tools. And finally, from the Flywheelers, when I went up to the little meet and greet, ran into a viewer, and he brought a little gift along for me. This is a set of Mitutoyo micrometers. These are actually metric sizes. I don't have a lot of metric micrometers, so this is definitely something that will be handy. I don't use, again, metric a whole lot, but every now and then you need it. And it's nice to have some of these. So he had a set here, basically from 0 up to, what does this go to? I don't see it on there, but anyway. And it came with standards and everything else. And also a set of Mitutoyo telescoping gauges. So these are really handy for, you take it up inside of a bore and you measure the inside. You kind of snap that in place. and then you can put a set of calipers or a set of micrometers across that to measure the inside bore diameters. So really nice set there, made by Mitutoyo, up to a nice little range of sizes. These are marked millimeters, but of course you can measure millimeters or inches with them because you're just using this as a transfer tool to put a measuring tool on to actually measure with. So whatever you measure with, you can measure on. So anyway, nice little set here. Appreciate that very much. Well, guys, I think that's pretty much a wrap. We once again got our bench cleaned off. We got all our tools put up, and it always feels good to have that kind of done because stuff kind of piles up over here, like I've said before, and I just kind of have to get these videos out from periodically just to kind of get them done. So anyway, very nice to get that checked off and get things taken care of. Again, if you're interested in coming to the ARNFest South event later this year, check it out on, go to the website, get registered, arnfest.com. Really hope to see some of you guys there. Hope you'll make the trip. Come have some fun for the weekend and hang out with some of your YouTube friends and get to meet some folks. Always a lot of fun. So we're trying to put together a fun event for everyone there, and I hope you'll make the trip over. And with that, again, that's a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments greatly help out. You can also help out by donating through Patreon, PayPal. There's links for that down below. That really helps me to, take the time to do these videos for you guys. And with that, we're going to sign off. We're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, as always, thanks for watching.